Welcome to BAM Fight Club. I'm Colby. This is Fern. We're previewing UFC 273 Volkanovski vs. the Korean Zombie. Fight's taking place on April 9th, 2022 at the VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville, Florida. Early prelims start at 3, prelims at 5, and main card at 7 on pay-per-view Pacific. And before we get into the fights, I just want to invite everybody to throw an illegal groin kick to the subscribe button and an illegal 12-6 elbow on that like button. Hit the subscribe, hit the like. It helps the YouTube algorithm, helps us get discovered. We'd appreciate it. And first up on the main card, we have Kevin Gastelum versus Dupreis. If I said that correctly, I hope I did. Gastelum coming in as a negative 160 favorite versus Dupreis at a plus 135 underdog. Fern, how'd you break down this fight?
Welcome everyone. Again, subscribe before you listen to us talk. Breaking down this fight, Kevin Gastelum is, very well known. Is a person that has now been in the UFC almost 9 years. Recent losses to Jared Cannonier, Robert Whittaker. He's training at Rafael Cordero's King's MMA gym. Apparently he's been training with Henry Cejudo lately as well. He's always exciting to watch. I still go back and I look at his fight, his KO win over Michael Bisping. He's fought Uriah Hall. All these guys who, are former champions, current champions, future Hall of Famers. So he has the experience. The thing is, I don't know what's been going on lately that he just kind of can't put it together. So in this last fight, he had a lot of lateral movement in and out. You can see the Muay Thai, the kind of shoot-to-box footwork, groundwork that he's kind of established. Body head, jabbing, consistently trying to kind of get them to drop their guard, and then coming after with kicks. So combo, kick, consistently. And little by little, he starts just everything ending it with the kick or starting with the kick. You see that Muay Thai shoot box influence heavily. Constantly being in the middle, ending his combinations and stuff like that with takedown attempts at the end of the round. So with Duplessis, interesting fighter. I don't know if you got a chance to watch any of his last fights, Colby. Great kickboxer. It's going to be hopefully a fight where they use their stand-up to go toe-to-toe. Duplessis has a high, tight guard. Super, kind of reminds me of Anderson Silva because at one point he has his hands up and he does like the elbow to kind of deflect, which is super interesting because not many people do that. That's definitely striking heavy, does a jumping flying knee, shoulder shrugs, chin tuck, just typical stand-up fighter, kind of like Edson Barbosa, Anderson Silva style. As the fight goes on, he's able to cover a large distance with the jab, guillotine guard, side mount, full mount, has a great consistent ground game. And as the fight goes on, he's able to put together his striking. One of the fights, the KOs he does, is he gets pinned against the cage and he bounces off of it and like lunges forward. I've never seen that before. It kind of reminds me of the, I want to say like Ali. Do you remember like watching Muhammad Ali fight? Like he does a rope-a-dope, like bounces off, goes forward. I'm trying to think of who else did that. Vanderlei Silva in Pride would just kind of corner himself and then like rubber band himself off. Very exciting matchup, interesting matchup. I hope Kevin Gastelum can kind of put together some wins and get up there because he's got the experience. It's just, can he make it work to his advantage? This is going to be hopefully a knockout on the feet. What are your thoughts, Colby?
Yeah, so I remember his last fight against Giles, and if I remember correctly, I actually picked Giles to win that fight, and I was feeling pretty good about it, but he did exactly what you said, which is he knocked out Giles with his back up against the fence. Giles kind of went in for the kill, and he just had that short straight right that just dropped Giles, and he was out. It was not it was not subtle. Was definitely impressed. has only had 2 fights in the UFC, which is part of the reason why I picked Giles, because Giles I thought had the experience. I like Giles stand-up, but he really impressed me in his last fight, so I gotta definitely not sleep on this guy. With Gastelum, obviously, as you mentioned, he has a ton of fights in the UFC, has fought the best of the best, and I don't know what his issue has been either in his last couple of fights. I feel like he did fairly well with Cannonier. It wasn't like he just got steamrolled. It was a pretty competitive fight. I feel like one of the big issues is, once you're in the top ranks of the UFC, you've been around for a while, guys have a lot of opportunities to watch a lot of your videos, and if you've got certain flaws in your style, they're going to get pinpointed. And I think maybe one of the issues with Gastelum is him being a little bit shorter for the division. I feel like guys, Whitaker is about the same height, but Whitaker also is just a beast, so I feel like it was a little bit different situation there. But with some of the other guys that are taller, I feel like they've really stayed out of his range really well, where he really has to lunge in to be able to make contact on the feet. So I don't know if that's the case, where he's just been, his weaknesses have been identified and there's nothing that he can do about it because it's a physicality issue or what. But looking forward to watching this fight. I always enjoy watching Gastelum's fights because they're always wars, it seems like. He gets in a lot of them, and super tough guy. I've loved watching him since he was on The Ultimate Fighter. And yeah, looking forward to watching this fight and seeing how it plays. So wait, who's your pick? Did you say who your pick was?
I want Gastelum. I want him to put it together for everything to work smoothly. Like you mentioned, he has had great performances, just coming up slightly short. He's not getting knocked out. He's not getting stopped. Nothing. It's just falling short every single time. And it's not by much.
One thing also about Duplessis, he's from South Africa, and so not a lot of fighters out of there. Maybe that's also why hadn't heard much about him prior to him getting into the UFC. But if I had to pick, I'm probably going to have to pick Duplessis after seeing the last 2 fights between both of these guys, even though the odds makers do have Gastelum as the -160 favorite. I was just super impressed. Duplessis in his last 2 fights, they didn't last very long. It was the second round knockout with Giles, and it was the first round knockout against Perez before that. So I'm rooting for Gastelum, but my logical pick is going to be Duplessis on this one.
He has shown great technique ability against the last fight that you mentioned that he had the KO in the first round. He was getting attacked. Was it the guy's last name Perez, right? He was on the back foot the whole time, and I'm like, they're like, he's anxious. You can tell it's his first fight in the UFC, and he almost got overwhelmed. But then he found his footing, his pacing, everything, and knocked him out on like spinning back fist attempt. Just short left jab to the temple as he spun. But he weathered that storm. I was like, this guy is coming out here to kill him, like Vanderlei Silva, like Tasmanian Devil style. Like in Pride Days where he would just put his head down, and I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but he is scared. And they commented on it a couple of times. But yeah, if he can weather a fighter like that, I think Gastelum's best chances are probably going to be to take down and see what he can do on the ground. Because standing up, I guess he's, kickboxing foundation. I guess he held 2 titles in different organizations at the same time. I definitely can see why people would be picking the upset. Gastelum, if he can just be smart, use his ground game, he can mix it up and then go for a knockout after that. But if he's not mixing in takedowns, he's going to get picked apart on the feet.
We will see.
And we're both wearing red, hopefully for a bloody outcome, foreshadowing. That was not on purpose, but we're going to go with that theme.
And next up, we have Mackenzie Dern versus Tisha Torres. This is very close on the odds. Dern coming in at -115, Torres at a -105. So I think that means Dern is a slight favorite. Yeah, the more negative. Yes, she's coming in as a slight favorite, but it's pretty much a coin toss, as close as those odds are. Really looking forward to seeing this fight. Mackenzie Dern, in her last fight, ended up losing to Rodriguez. Tisha Torres in her last fight ended up having a big win over Angela Hill. It was a great fight. Really close, very competitive. So looking forward to seeing this one. How'd you break this one down, friend?
Mackenzie Dern is known for her grappling, has strong grappling foundation, strong jiu-jitsu, was able to use that to mix it up. Her last fight that you mentioned against Rodriguez, I believe, it ended up being a 5-round fight where she definitely had her moments. When she had her moments, she mounted, got full mount, got her in a crucifix, got her in a I believe omoplata, got her in just all these different submissions that I was just like, if time hadn't run out, like that was a fight finishing move. And that was multiple times. And even in a couple of rounds where she got dominated, all she needed was a slip up or a trip to end up in these dominant positions. You know, granted, I expect Tisha Torres to have better all-around footwork, foundation. Mackenzie Dern, likes to clinch against the fence, has great hand and arm grips, almost tries to do judo throws, judo toss with the hips, ends up using her combos to set up the takedowns. She ended up failing a throw and then attacking the leg. Great transitions, goes from side control to knee on belly to crucifix, ends up turning the crucifix into an armbar using her legs, to back control, to mount, complete dominance in one of those rounds where I was just like, that could have easily been a 10-8 round. But then the next round, she comes back and is just, you can tell it took a toll on her. And she was able to, not have that as good a success. And then the following round, just able to use one simple mistake by Rodriguez to take her down, to mount her. So she's great at capitalizing on that. Her striking definitely isn't up to par. If she isn't able to close the distance and get a takedown, I could see Torres, definitely being the victor. Torres, her last fight, amazing. Against Hill, against Hughes previously. Against Hughes, it ended up being a corner stoppage. She was a late replacement. Just complete dominance. She is fast. She was like the Mighty Mouse of the girls division. Tisha Torres, if she isn't on her way to, a title shot or being a champion, like, I'm going to be surprised. I loved watching her fight with Angela Hill. Just nonstop. Go ahead.
You think Torres dominated Hill in that last fight?
I thought just because she was throwing so much, like her output was just crazy compared to Hill's. Hill definitely was the bigger, stronger fighter, who was able to sit on her punches. But Torres was just like, same thing. I'm going to use the Tasmanian Devil today. That's going to be the theme. Just flying, kicking everywhere. When she got taken down, just up kicks nonstop. Was just, her output was ridiculous. And that just, I think, is because I watched it right after her fight against Hughes. And I was like, she kept that energy through 2 fight camps, which, a lot of people aren't able to do. Was able to end a round with a double leg slam. Things like that. Her scrambles are amazing. Her leg kicks, her combos, clinching and comboing, front kicks, spinning back kicks, punching through the tie clinch when she got caught. Just, I am excited. Here's another girl fight that I hope lives up to it. Last weekend, great girl fight, back and forth, absolute action. Let's go for 3 fights in a row. What are your thoughts, Colby?
Yeah. I think Torres looked really good in that fight against Angela Hill. I thought it was a little bit closer. I didn't think she exactly steamrolled Angela, but definitely frustrated Angela. The stand-up looked great. I feel like Angela did have her moments. And just looking at the stats, Dern is somebody who can finish the fight. She's got a lot of submissions on her record. Torres is definitely a decision fighter where she racks up the points probably from trying to keep things standing up. I think Dern has a little bit advantage on the height, which I think is going to help her with getting things to the ground, because Torres is going to have to cover some distance to try to make contact with the strikes, and I think that's going to leave some openings for Dern to be able to get a takedown. And Dern's got a lot of submissions on her record. So as far as picks go, I'm going to pick Dern, but as the odd makers have indicated, this is going to be a close one. Could definitely go either way.
Yeah, I would love to see Torres keep going through because she's just wild. Dern definitely has the better experience, the grappling pedigree. I believe her dad is some renowned grappling jiu-jitsu ace guy. So you can definitely see it in her skills and abilities. She's able to turn everything into a submission attempt, everything into a hold, an attack. Great person to see close quarters. I would say, if anything, she'd be the female version of, who's that guy, Ryan Hall, that everyone, super loves. And, except she doesn't have the fancy, like, baits that he does. She definitely is more forward going. And yeah, great fight. Let's go for 3 girl fights in a row that are amazing and that we'll be talking about for a while.
Absolutely. Next up, we have Gilbert Burns versus Khamzat Chimaev. Burns coming in as a plus 380 underdog against Chimaev, a negative 500 favorite. I cannot wait to see this fight. It's been a while. I feel like since we've seen Chimaev fight, this is the guy with all the hype behind him. Burns has already taken a shot at the title. Chimaev is the one guy I feel like everybody thinks has a chance for that title fight to beat Usman. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm just going to come out and say right off the top here, I'm rooting for Chimaev because I do want to see him get into the ring with Usman. I feel like he's the biggest threat to Usman at this point in the division. What are your thoughts?
He is a big guy. I've been watching the videos of him and Darren Till walking around, training, hanging out, and he is just massive. I think he has the height, the reach, and he's fearless. Like, he has no reason to not, to fear anyone right now. He's just walked through everyone, picks them up, manhandles them, grapples them, is constantly doing like wrestling tournaments, grappling tournaments to kind of hone his skills. I definitely would like to see him challenge for the belt. Burns, he's had his chance. He clearly rocked Usman in their fight immediately. But then it faded. So I want to see somebody who has something different, a different kind of threat to pose to Usman, and the height, the size, the physicality, the attitude, the mentality. I don't think they call him the Wolf for no reason. Like, he is just a beast in there. He's looking to eat people up, and he's whatever, I don't remember his ethnicity, but he is their version of Mystic Mac. He is predicting things. I'm going to go out there and dominate. I'm going to go out there and walk through this guy and just manhandle them, and then he does very easily. So
yeah, and Gilbert's coming off a win against Stephen Thompson, which was quite impressive. I don't know if you remember that fight, but Burns' wrestling, it seems like it's improved since his fight with Usman, and it just seems better than what I've seen in previous fights. And that's essentially how he ended up winning that fight against Stephen Thompson, was just the wrestling, being able to keep Thompson down, which is incredibly difficult to do. Even though Thompson's a stand-up fighter, you got to know when you're a stand-up fighter that, all you probably are drilling in the practice room is how to escape the takedown. Once you get taken out, how to get back up. And Thompson's a veteran, and he was able to just hold him down, ground and pound. And it's going to be interesting if Burns is at the top of his game in terms of his wrestling is peaking, and he's going to go against a guy like Chimaev, whose wrestling seems like nobody's been able to do anything to stop this guy. I mean, he just imposes his will. Chimaev's last 3 fights, he's won in the first round. He's had 4 fights in the UFC so far. His first fight, he ended up getting the sub in the second round. But then that was followed up by 2 KOs, and his last fight was submission against Jing Lang. So, I don't know. What do you think Gilbert Burns' strategy should be going into this? Do you think he has a better chance in the stand-up, or do you think he has a better chance on the ground in the grappling?
I think grappling-wise, because Khamzat has a great, I would say, like, wrestling, whereas Gilbert has more grappling. Khamzat hasn't needed his wrestling for anything but to dominate. You haven't seen anyone threaten him with submissions, with any of those fundamental things. He's just walking through and punching through them. and he's got the height and the reach. I think keeping it standing up, even though Burns was able to have, some success against Thompson, against Usman, the reach and the size, Khamzat is 6'2", and Burns is 5'10". That doesn't seem like much, but then you factor in the arm reach, the leg reach, all these things, and he needs to get in close to have a chance. I don't know. I hope the grappling is there, the wrestling is there, and I think that, his preparation against Thompson, who is known for his striking, his versatility, all those, flashy attacks, helped him get ready for somebody who is going to punch at him, with bad intentions, and getting in close and trying to nullify that and negate that. And hopefully, he definitely implemented that amazingly well against Thompson. So hopefully that was just a setup for what he's going to do this next fight. It's hard to think that he'll make it work and it'll happen. It's like the last fight when we talked about, was it Dawkins and Blades? You're like, can he land that uppercut? Will he? No.
That fight with Curtis Blades was a complete surprise. I don't think anybody expected Blades to keep it on the feet and ended up getting the knockout. But I think it was partly the threat of the takedown is probably what gave him the chance in that one. But yeah, I feel like this is similar. There's maybe only one or two things that Burns can do that's going to give him a chance. I don't know what those are exactly, but hopefully he's worked it out with his team and he's going to go in there and try to execute that strategy. Hopefully for his sake, I'm actually rooting for Chimaev on this one. It doesn't seem like it's a very good bet. You're not going to be able to make very much money when someone's got negative 500 next to their name, but maybe you can get a prop bet, on method of victory or something that might give you some better odds or something like that if you're looking to bet. But yeah, I can't wait to see this fight. Next up, we have Aljamain Sterling versus Peter Yan. Sterling coming in as a plus 350 underdog against Yan, a negative 450 favorite. And this is going to be a fun fight because it's going to be the conclusion to so much shit talking that's been going on since their last meetup where Yan ended up getting disqualified after pounding Sterling's face in for an illegal knee strike to the head. And yeah, I feel like this is another one where there's a few ways maybe that Sterling can win, but the odds are definitely not in his favor. He's going to need to execute on some game plan. Although I do think I will say this, I think Sterling is actually going to have a better performance this time around than he did the first time around. I think it'll be closer than it was last time, and the reason for that is because Sterling came off really strong in their last fight. In the first round, he looked great when Sterling had his output, just to the max and lots of volume and lots of movement all over the place. I don't think that he had Yan in trouble, but he definitely was racking up points and avoiding any big hits. I feel like in that first round, and you could also tell the coaches knew this as well. They kept yelling at him the entire time, even when the tide started to turn, that Sterling had to keep his pace up if he's going to have any chance at winning. And so now that Sterling's been in there, he's gone a few rounds with them. He knows where he was successful and he knows when he got in trouble. And I feel like he started to get in trouble just when he was kind of gassed out. And then Yan was just able to use his technical striking ability and just put it on Sterling and, throw some massive hits and put him in trouble. What are your thoughts on this one?
I definitely agree with what you were saying about how Sterling, the last fight, had his moments. Definitely had me, on the edge of my seat where I was like, oh, Yan is fading. Yan is, getting touched. He's backing up. I want to see this be a definitive conclusion. I want it to be like, whoever wins, like, that was a fluke. And I hope it's Yan, because I don't care for the way that, it ended. I don't, I know fighters get hurt. I know all that stuff. To me, it was too quick of a recovery by Sterling to be coherent and cognizant, like when he had plenty of time to keep trying to recover. You've seen these guys get hit in the head really hard, kneed in the head, kicked every type of strike to the head. So it's hard for me to think that unless like they're completely out, that they're hurt for too long of a time. And you know, the fact that he was pretty coherent right afterwards, to me, was that wasn't a strike that landed very hard. Yeah, you know, I don't know, still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But I want Jan to knock him out, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't like how Sterling has been conducting himself since then, having the surgery and being like, oh, I hurt myself. Like, I don't know. It just has left a bad taste in my mouth. And you know, Jan has just been super humble, graceful, and I want to see people like that continue to win and be acknowledged versus somebody who, you know, won in the manner that Sterling did and be as loud as he is and be as, you know, kind of brash and in a way disrespectful. Like, we all know I wanted to see you lose, but
yeah, I don't blame Sterling at all for, you know, saying that he can't continue when you take a strike like that to the head that was illegal. After how many times have we seen John Jones, you know, foul somebody in the most egregious way, and then the guy continues on, and then he just ends up losing, like the most recent one being with, you know, Anthony Smith, where Jones did completely illegal strike, compromised the guy. Anthony Smith's like, I can continue, and then he just ends up getting destroyed. So I don't blame a guy, you know, if you take an illegal strike and it really didn't affect him too much, you know, maybe a groin strike or something like that. If it were stopped for some reason other than there was really some medical issue from a groin strike, I'd have a problem with a fighter not taking the full time and, you know, saying he can or can't continue. But I actually don't agree with the ref asking the fighter if they can continue after they've had an illegal strike to the head, because I feel like, you know, the least trustworthy opinion in the ring at that point is the guy who just took a blow to the head. So,
and that's who you're asking.
You know, whether or not, whether or not he's fine to continue, I think it should be up to the ref and the doctor, and you shouldn't even ask the fighter, I think, if they've got a strike that if they got a strike to the groin, you know, I feel like that's a different issue. With eye pokes, you know, maybe you can ask the fighter, but I still think it should be left out. I don't think the fighter should even be involved in the decision in that case. The thing that I think made it so weird was that this was the first time in UFC history where the title changed hands because of a disqualification. And I think that's where so much, you know, there was so much controversy around it, was that there was a title on the line, and the title changed hands through disqualification, which, you know, no one ever wants to see the guy holding the belt because the other guy got disqualified. So I will defend Sterling a little bit. And since then, I feel like the reason there's been so much shit talking from Sterling is because what is the guy going to do? You know, if you put yourself in his shoes, everybody knows that he didn't win it the way everybody wanted him to win it. And I feel like he just kind of embraced, you know, the heel position, and, you know, just decided to roll with it instead of, you know, trying to defend himself. He just kind of, you know, hammed it up and played it up, and I don't know. I think he had fun with it. But we're gonna see when they go back into the ring who really is the winner. You know, the odds makers, obviously, based on that first fight, are put in Jan's favor, and I'd agree with. I'm picking Jan to win. I want to see Jan win. I think he's a great guy. He's got a great story behind him. I mean, Sterling too, as well. But Jan's striking is I think pretty special. He's one of those guys. He kind of reminds me of, like we talked about, Arnold Allen in terms of how technical he is. His defense and striking is rock solid, which is why I think he has no problem letting guys get burned out, you know, for 1 or 2 rounds, is because he's so confident in his ability, his striking defense ability to take those shots, to set up the counters. And I think he spends that first round really getting down a guy's timing, is what I've seen, not just in that Sterling fight, but I've seen with other fights as well. So I think Jan has something special when it comes to striking. I definitely want to see, you know, him come out on top on this one and get back what is rightfully his, that title.
You bring up a good point where you know, if somebody feels like they're compromised, like they're not able to continue 100%, is it wise to continue, you know, giving that the circumstances are now against you, the odds are against you? And you bring up good points where fighters have continued only to get finished convincingly. So if you trained and prepared for all this, and you wouldn't go into this fight unless you were 100%, and then in the fight, you know, you are no longer 100%, what should you do as a professional athlete? Should you risk yourself, given that if you get hurt, you get dropped, you get stopped, whatever, you know, best case scenario, you get a quick medical suspension, you recover, you know, but what about worst case scenario? We have yet to see that in the UFC, where somebody, you know, pays the price or has a long medical recovery, besides, you know, the Conor McGregor breaking his leg and Anderson or Chris Weidman. But like, you can never, you know, who wants to go into a fight with somebody who's great at striking, knowing that you're not fully present, fully aware, fully capable of defending yourself and attacking? So good point.
Yeah, and that was crazy to watch, and it makes you feel so bad for Jan, because you know the way the fight had turned, he was going to win. It's not like he did that illegal strike because he was losing and it was his way out or anything like that. So it was just a, you know, one of those things, the heat of the moment, just did something he shouldn't have done. So yeah, looking forward to this fight. I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to be a good one. I think Jan's going to come out on top. And for the main event, Alexander Volkanovski versus Chan Song Jung, the Korean Zombie. This one, the odds are even crazier. Negative 700 favorite for Volkanovski. Korean Zombie coming in as a plus 500 underdog. Volkanovski, man, that last fight that he had with Ortega, I don't even know. We had seen him, you know, Volkanovski in the stand-up with Holloway. We knew that he was tough. We knew that he was good all around. But he took things to a new level when Ortega, like one of the best submission artists in the division, maybe in the UFC, gets these super tight, deep, you know, submissions that, what did he have him in? The guillotine, and Volkanovski just had no quit in him. He just refused. He's like, I'm not passing out. I'm not going to tap, and somehow fought through it. And then like 2 seconds after he got out of that guillotine, he found himself in like a triangle choke that was so deep. You're just like, oh my God. I was freaking out watching that fight, and cannot believe that Volkanovski was able to escape those submissions, and he just destroyed, I mean, other than those submissions, destroyed Ortega. If you look at Ortega's face after that fight was over, it looked like he got hit by a train. So Volkanovski, absolute beast. I don't really see, this is another fight. I don't see a way for Korean Zombie, you know, to win this fight where you can say he's going to win it on the ground. He's going to, you know, have a chance in the stand-up. I don't see the path for Korean Zombie. And Korean Zombie, he's coming off of a win over Dan Ige. It was a 5-round fight. It was a competitive fight, a you know, fun fight to watch. Korean Zombie before that lost to Ortega, who Volkanovski just beat.
Pretty bad.
And this wasn't...
He lost.
Yeah, and this wasn't...
Beat down.
You know, this wasn't like, you know, 3, 4, or 5 years in between where, you know, maybe it was a different Ortega. It was, you know, relatively recent, October of 2020, they lost to Ortega. And obviously you can't do the MMA math and say, oh, just because he beat this guy lost to him, therefore he's going to win. But, yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Volkanovski. He just is a great athlete, great, you know, performs consistently. You mentioned his fight against Ortega, where, you know, yeah, Ortega, you know, shows why he's in the UFC, why people of this level are always dangerous no matter what's happening. They can get beat up and they get, you know, a chance and they throw up a Hail Mary and it can land, and it almost did. I think anyone else would have tapped, should have tapped. I thought Volkanovski was out at one point. I was like, there's no way. Like, how did he walk into that? And, you know, he's got to be grateful and thankful for his short, stocky neck that, like, kept him in it. He just, like, shrugged and popped out. Like, maybe the bald hair, like, just helped him slip out. Because I don't know how else he got out. You know, the Korean Zombie, always been a fan of him. It's going to be an exciting fight where he brings pressure, tries to, you know, make an attack happen. But having seen the outcome of, you know, him against Brian Ortega, it's hard to think. Again, MMA math doesn't matter, doesn't work, nothing. But he got beat down, and it was kind of sad. Like, you know, he was definitely on his way up, and Ortega humbled him, and then Volkanovski humbled Ortega. So I'm excited for it. I hope that Volkanovski keeps it going. You know, maybe when you start having these kind of fighters that are, you know, at the top of their division, we start seeing, you know, those jumpers fighting weight classes and going for multiple belts. I want to see that happen more. It'd be great to see, you know, Peter Yan against Volkanovski if they could ever get close to weight, you know, anything like that. But, you know, there's such a big difference as they go up or down, and I want to see it. Give me some super fights, some freak shows. Like, let's bring Pride style back into it, because they're already so big. You know, difference wise, like, you know, we were just sharing today that Paddy Pimblett, you know, is already up to 200 pounds, and he fought at 155, and you're like, man, does weight matter? Yes, it does, you know, absolutely, but let's have some fun with it.
Yeah, another interesting fact here is how great of an upset would it be if Korean Zombie won, because he fought for the belt against Jose Aldo in 2013. And here we are 9 years later, he gets another chance at the belt. Mm-hmm. It would be, you know, like I don't know what you can compare it to, like a Michael Bisping story, someone who's been going at it for so long and then, you know, is finally able to get that belt.
It's a Rocky IV.
So
he's an Asian Rocky IV. Yeah. Like that.
Yeah, he's a big underdog. You know, it would be absolutely incredible if he comes out on top. You know, great for him, and it's his, you know, his great career. I'm got to imagine he's getting close to the end of it. He's a 145 pounder and he's 35 years old, and for that weight class, you know, one of the most competitive for sure in MMA is 145. You know, 155 I'd say probably the most competitive, and maybe 170. And you know, you slip just a little bit. It's not like heavyweights, I feel like, in terms of, you know, the expected longevity. The fights, you know, they tend to take a lot more strikes, and it's also just a much more competitive division. So he's got to be getting at the end of his career, and how great would it be for to be able to go out on top if he wins the title fight and, you know, either just retires right there or maybe has one more fight so he can make some money and get those champion pay-per-view points maybe. But
yeah, besides,
yeah,
I want to say this year we have yet to see like the upset that's craziness that you're just like, that was not expected. There's been some crazy finishes for sure. Oh yeah, Nunez was that this year?
I think it was this year. I'm pretty sure. I think it was just a few months ago. Nunez, that was the great upset of all the past decade. I feel like, yeah. Against Pena.
But that's crazy that you bring up, you know, Jose Aldo. Like that seems like that was so many generations of UFC, and like he's like our age. Like,
yeah, yeah.
And you're like, he was like, that was his time, 2013, and I'm like, oh, we're past our prime too.
Man, MMA moves fast. I mean, for being as young of a sport it is, yeah, you know, 2 or 3 years in this sport, and especially when there's fights every single weekend. Yeah, it seems like an eternity ago back in 2013 against Jose Aldo. But yeah, looking forward to this one. There's going to be some great fights on this card. I can't wait to see them. There's some big underdogs, so how fun would it be to see, you know, one of these huge upsets. There's going to be 3 chances for 3 of these fighters coming up on this next card.
Thanks again for joining us, BAM Fight Club. Subscribe, follow us on YouTube first, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We are officially over 1 million people reached. Would like to then get those numbers up, and if you like what we're saying, what we're talking about, you know, tell a friend. We're having a blast with it. Hopefully we're sharing a different kind of perspective on it, different point of view. We love what we're doing, and thanks for joining us. And by the way, BAM Fight Club means by any means, so subscribe by any means.